over here, and today we have a new episode in the art review series. And today we'll be checking out the work of At Gilan, and again, an anime person type of artist. Let's get to it. So for this piece, the first piece we see, at least of this recording, wow. First of all, a guy in a maid suit, maid uniform. It's pretty interesting. I love the contrast. Is it really masculine? Somewhat of a femboy or something. Oh, what program is this? I know it's not Clip Studio Paint. Maybe it's a cousin program of CSP. Who knows? So this guy is somewhat of a Wolverine at the same time. I can see like or is he Wolverine, or he just has a bunch of dagger knives? I do like the gloves. I love the way the folds were done with the maid outfit, even with the actual, like the main thing. Oh, I think it's all just one thing. I love the folds. It's so pretty, and a lot of shape variety. And even within those shapes between the darks and the lights, I do think a lot of gradients were being used. Gradients meaning there's a bunch of like soft brushes, maybe in overlay or hard light mode, to add a bit of soft variation in between edges, or in between or within those specific shapes. So I'm not sure if the lasso tool is also being used from time to time, but there's just so much. Oh, it's somewhat complementary, green and red, so you can see the blood here, and the hair and the actual lighting of the suit is somewhat blue-green, and there's a bit of that complementary thing happening there. I like it. The sketch lines are pretty much out of the picture. They're hardly ever seen. So eventually I think this artist plans to paint over those, or the majority of the sketch. A bit of blood splat on the face, maybe even in the ears. I love the facial expression with the tongue out. Ooh, kinky. I love that bit of lighting in the neck, and you can see the kind of red spot right here in between the shadow underneath the chin and the neck. And this part of the neck is not as dark, so a bit of reflected lighting perhaps. Some indication of the forms of the ears, but it's not necessarily through high rendering. One shadow shape and some line work. So heavy investment with the folds and the gloves and even the hair, but the face is usually kept simple for these kinds of artworks. And I like the balance. The skin or the actual body is not as rendered, especially the face. And then within the face, sometimes the eyes are super like galaxy type of colors. In this case, usually the fabrics, the clothing has way more variety in value and colors. And that includes the hair as well. So here we have the original sketch. It's a bit rough, but you can see based on the previous thing we just viewed, it shows up. So this guy is wearing heels. Interesting. I think he's smoking some kind of cigarette. No shit. And yeah. So even the pose itself from the beginning is already somewhat dynamic, and it carries through, even through the coloring stage. So here we have another close-up of maybe the same character in a different attire. Again, that's gradient thing where you use a soft brush to maybe in overlay, hard light, soft light mode, or whatever, or color dodge perhaps, and then it adds a bit of that soft wash effect, say with the shadows and stuff. And it can help add a bit of, because oftentimes because of the fabric, it can look somewhat a bit too sharp. So maybe that soft brush gradient effect can tone things down and make it more easier to consume. I love the pose here. Nice character, facial expression. So yeah, so maybe he does this first, or she does this first, or this artist does the rough first, and then a solid line work on top of that. Oh my, so we have a bunch of bunnies here. Very, very interesting, somewhat kinky. Is this a guy or a chick? Who knows? But it's still hot. Okay, so we have again the fabrics or the clothing for the guy with the blue-green hair. And in the actual hair, they have way more, I guess, shape design, even within the actual like pose of the character. It's part of the rendering thing, I guess. And it's pretty common in these types of artworks. And yes, the bunny concept is pretty common as well. So if it's not a person in a maid suit, it's usually a bunny costume. And again, I love how the gloves are often, they're not usually like to the wrist, they're kind of halfway. I do like the look of it. Is it practical? No, but it looks hot. I love how the back shot looks very realistic, you know? The curvature of the back is realistic because oftentimes you want to make it like super arched or super straight, and that's not natural. The body has natural curves that go in and out. Although, yeah, I don't really have complaints, and yes. So for this piece, it's pretty clean. It's just a basic sketch. There was most likely a rough sketch in the beginning, and then a light line work to just kind of contain the major shapes, and then this is just a bunch of flats underneath. But the pose is there, the design is there. If you added like this level of coloring, it's going to look amazing. Or if you check out the first artwork we reviewed in this video, and if you added that kind of rendering approach to this piece, it's going to look pretty cool. So get things right from the beginning. Not all, but just get enough right, and then everything else will just follow through and make things even better. Oh, here we actually have a colored piece. There's not a lot of rendering involved. It's still a bunch of flats, but within those flats, there are a lot of gradients, meaning the soft brush was being used to add this wash effect. So it's not necessarily a rendering, but, you know, I think it's a great way to save time. Like, you don't need to add so many folds and shit. Just separate two things, the light part and the dark part, the one in shadow, and then within that shadow, that's when you can play a lot with soft brushes. And it's a great way to save time. Here we have a close-up. I think it's the same character but in different positions. I do like the way the hand was rendered here. Different values. It's still within like the brown-pink scheme, but there's enough value variation to make it look somewhat realistic. And again, not a lot of texture work within the character, but it compensates because there's so much like this part right here, the lighting, the shadows, the reflected lighting. It all works together and adds to that textured look. The background, I believe, is a photograph that was blurred in some way or filtered out. So here we have a nice cute scene of these two people. I'm assuming both are boys because this is usually how it turns out. I like the line work. It's not necessarily super clean, but it's efficient. Like it's done right. It's not clean, meaning it's not fulfilled in the edges. Like you can see some openings here and there, some back and forth stuff. Very gestural line work, I would say. But it's right. It does get somewhat tighter with the profile of the face, or within the profile, or in the profile of the face, but the coloring of the face it's just a bunch of flats, but there's a big shadow chunk here for this guy and a big shadow chunk for hopefully this is a chick or not. You know, a hole is a hole. Even the strawberry it has enough, Jesus, even the strawberry has enough variation of values. Some reflected lighting, and you can see some indication of the spots in the strawberry or the notches in the strawberry. I like the way the hand was done here, the knuckles, and the eyes are well done too. Very simplified, very efficient way of doing the face. And the eyes, I think there was more time spent with the eyes, with the eyeshadow, or not eyeshadow, but the lashes and such. But oftentimes the eyes for this, in this style, it's not even that ass colored compared to other types of similar artworks. It's pretty simple. I think the lasso tool was used here for the shadows. I like it. A bit of reflected lighting, I believe, for some parts of the hair. I love the earrings. Oh shit, look at how the blue-green is in the green part of the strawberry, and then the reds of this person is in the actual major part of the strawberry. So there's almost like a linkage of these two people. Oh my god, kawaii! So horny, so horny. Now this one is more finished. Reminds me of another artist, I forgot her name. She has a big YouTube channel as well where she shows her processes and such. Eventually I'll link it in the description below, but yeah, very clean. Now this one feels more like a full illustration, and the line work is pretty much non-existent. It's hard to see. So same character, maybe this is some kind of prince. So I think it is a dude. Yes. Let's zoom in a bit. Wow. I love the gloves here. You can still see that kind of rough, not that clean line work, but gestural line work. It compensates. I love how the folds were done. And yes, you can see that soft brush being used for the gradients. Maybe a bit of gradient maps were used in the end to just add a bit more color variety. But yeah, I love the shapes here, especially in this part of the staff. Him holding the staff. And this part of the hair, wow, very, very interesting. So gestural, confident lines. some use of the lasso tool maybe, separating the lights from the darks, and then adding some soft or using soft brushes to add some gradients, especially usually in the shadow parts. And yeah, a lot of value range here being used for the folds again, for this kind of sleeve, gloves, and the hair. The face is super simplified. The eyes are not as rendered. It's pretty simple, pretty clean, pretty safe. The eyes are kept simple. There's no like multiple colors within the pupils of the eye. It's just there. I think it's because there's already so much happening within the clothing and within the hair that it balances things out. So we'll end the video here with this piece. I love the hair design. There's hardly any line work anymore. A bit of blurring perhaps in the edges, and especially in the bottom. And maybe I do think there's a bit of an RGB shift effect in the end. Now for the texture of the snake, it is painted in. So that's nice. Complementary, warm background. And then the bluish, cool, greenish, blue-green hair and clothing attire. And even the way the chest is done, like you could see a bit of that pec. Ooh la la. It's enough. It looks almost like a gouache painting in a way. This part of the hair is fantastic. Look at that contrast. It gets somewhat washy or lost in this part, and then it gets even more refined in the strands of the hair, especially in this part as well. The edges. This part is just left flat. The eyes, there's a bit more detail in. The facial features are pretty, especially when it comes to the nose, cheek, mouth area. It's usually that pretty simple. The ear is also simple, although there's a bit more detail because of its shape. The nose is usually kept like a triangle, and the eyes are pretty cool here. And you can see a bit of that, or the other eye. It's not exactly covered, so it's a heavier contrast. This dark snake within, or it's contrasting, or contrasted with the light face. And again, with the hand of this other person being, so that thumb is a bit too close to the mouth, but anyway. So we'll end the art review here. Check out the work of @Gillan on Twitter. I will link all of the links in the description below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next art review.